What's going on, guys? Steve here with Geek Boulevard, and it is time for another movie review. And this week's review is Undertone, an indie horror film from A24 that has been getting some positive word of mouth, but let's find out if Undertone was really worth the price of admission to go see it. Be advised that I will be going into spoilers about the film's plot later in this review, so this review will be spoiler free for now, and don't worry, I will be sure to give you a fair warning before diving into those spoilers, and I've also included timestamps down below, so I've got you covered. Undertone is written and directed by Ian Twasson. It is rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes. A podcast host covering spooky content moves in to care for her dying mother. When sent recordings of a pregnant couple's paranormal encounters, she discovers their story parallels hers, each tape pushing her toward madness. Like we always do, we're going to talk about the things I enjoyed about this film first. First and foremost, this is for sure a very creepy and unsettling film in all the best ways. The film never undersells those creepy moments either and lets them linger, which is due mostly to the cinematography by Graham Beasley. The expert use of negative space to make the audience feel on edge, like it was so well implemented here. It happened quite a bit where there would be shots of our main character Evie, who's played wonderfully by Nina Kiri, I might add, sitting at her kitchen, but she would take up just about maybe 1/3 of the shot, like she'd be all the way off to the right. She would just be like a small sliver of that shot. And then the rest of the shot would just be this open space of either like the hallway or a doorway that leads into the kitchen or the stairway. And just sitting the camera on that bit of darkness, it makes you more and more uneasy because you're just looking at that negative space, because it's almost as if the camera wants you to look in that direction for something to happen. Sometimes there would be things that would happen and sometimes there wouldn't, but you just can't really take your eyes off that open space. So that's what makes it so effective and so creepy. I was also getting like vibes of Sinister throughout a lot of this film, and which is a good thing, because if there's a horror movie that I would love horror movies to copy more of, it's Sinister. For example, like these strange recordings in this film, comparing them to the home movies that were in Sinister, and each time that those movies would be viewed from Ethan Hawke's character, something creepy and unexplained would happen in the house. And it's the same effect here, where every time Evie and her co-host, Justin, would listen to these audio files, these 10 audio files, something creepy would happen in the house. And she would have to go and investigate, and most of the paranormal activity would happen around her mother's bedroom. Which also brings me to my next positive, and that is the sound design here, which is just top tier. There's very limited music in the film as it relies mostly on ambient sound, which just adds to the overall creepiness of events happening in the house. Especially those moments where Evie's like putting on her headphones, and every time that she does that, that ambient noise just gets canceled out because she's putting on noise canceling headphones. So that little touch was very unique, and I really liked that. But not just that, like the distant banging in the house coming from upstairs, like there's whispering, like all of that just really adds to the tension of the overall experience. Looking at the budget for this movie, this really is without a doubt a low budget horror movie. This movie was only made for $500,000 and it made over $9 million at the box office, which is a crazy big number for a movie of that stature. And it does kind of make sense why the movie was shot with that budget, because it only takes place in one location in this house, which is actually the director's childhood home, I might add. And this story reflects his own life, and he wrote the script for this story as he was caring for both of his parents who had been diagnosed with cancer. It definitely is a story that hits close to home for him, and when I read about that, I was like, oh wow, that not only makes the film more effective, but definitely seemed like it was very hard to make that film, because you're putting a lot of yourself into your work. That also makes for the best art, for the best expression. And sometimes grief can provide the best sort of artistic expression, which is sad to really say that, but that is the truth. And I think Ian Twasson did a really good job of portraying what that grief, what that guilt feels like for caring for a loved one who can't really care for themselves anymore. What I didn't like so much about the film is how ambiguous and abrupt the ending was when that came about. So let's get into some of the details of that. That also means that this is going to be your spoiler warning. So if you don't want the major story moments or really any story moments ruined for you, then I highly suggest you skip this part of the review and go straight to my final verdict. That being said, you have been warned. Now I'm going to be making another comparison to Sinister here. In Sinister, the family moves into this home where a series of murders were committed. You think this is more or less just like a thriller kind of horror film, and then it becomes something far more than that. The story centers around a deity, a god who takes children and all of that. So like when I was watching this film, this has that same type of twist to it, where in the story, Evie is unknowingly conjuring the demon Abazu. For those that don't know, Abazu is a bit of true folklore about a demon that causes infertility in women. This film really delves into not just the mistakes of adults and children suffering from those mistakes. Like when a woman becomes pregnant and she decides she's not fit to be a mother, suffering for the parents' sins, the adult sins, mind you. That's what like a lot of those nursery rhymes that are sung in the film, those have to do a lot with children losing their lives. And it's very dark, it's very twisted, but it gets even more darker with the twist of Abazu, which I did like. But my negative with the film, like I said, is the ending. There's a quote from the film that I'm gonna say that has to do with Evie towards the end, where she says to a caller for the podcast, and she says, "I killed my mother." At first, I took that as more of like a metaphor for not really praying with her mother when she was sick or something to that effect, because her mother fell ill. She's a very religious woman, and you know, she felt guilty about that. That's just what I assumed, because she wasn't like really there for her in her time of need. But what I found odd is that her mother's bed is completely empty and fully made, as if no one had even laid in the bed for quite some time, as if like maybe her mother actually was dead and had been dead for quite some time. So then I start asking myself, okay, well, has her mother been dead this whole time? Did she literally kill her mother out of like stress and exhaustion because she couldn't bear the weight of having to take care of her anymore? But she feels like guilty, so perhaps she hallucinates taking care of her mother so that she doesn't have to face the fact of what she did. Was her mother actually the demon Abazu, like pretending to be her and, you know, trying to get her to let her in by listening to those recordings? Like, all these questions kept popping up in my head, and I just never got any answers to those questions, unfortunately. So it left me feeling quite empty and a little disappointed once the credits started rolling. It's one of those endings where like you can come up with your own interpretation, and your interpretation of that can be true and another person's interpretation can be true, but there's no true answer as to what exactly happened at the end of the film. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and it just kind of made me annoyed, as I was expecting a more definitive conclusion to the story, and I didn't really get that. In conclusion, I'm giving Undertone a score of 4 out of 5. Director and writer Ian Twasson does a phenomenal job of making an effective and creepy horror film on a very small budget, with clever use of cinematography and sound that really add to the overall experience. The ending, however, is rather abrupt and left me asking more questions and not getting any answers, which was definitely frustrating. But those are my thoughts. Now I want to know what you guys thought of Undertone. Did you see the film? Did you like it? Are you kind of on the fence about the ending, or did you really enjoy the ending? Do you like the fact that it's kind of up to your own interpretation of what might have happened in those final few moments in the film? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on it, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed what you're watching. Make sure you subscribe to Geek Boulevard if you're new, and tick that notification bell so you can always be notified when my next movie review or trailer reaction drops on the channel. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. Remember to always stay classy, stay geeky, and I'll catch you in the next video.
What were you thinking? You shouldn't have listened to all of them. It's what she wants.